get my 6. Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to Homesteading Off the Grid and another episode of whatever the hell this channel's about. Today, it was about me and my beautiful bride, Dearly, aka Giggly Girl, and our darling son, Daniel, sitting up here around, campfire at our new fire pit I built just a few days ago. Well, yesterday, actually, and what a freaky experience I had last night. But you guys probably saw that video. So, I said, gosh, guys, I need to make my video. And I said, I'll do it while you're here. You guys sit there in the background around the fire. Be nice. And they're like, you going to tell a scary story? And I was like, well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I do. And they're like, nope. They said, text us, because I, recording with my phone, they said, text us when you're done. We'll come back up. And they went down to the house. So here I am. Yeah, I have kind of a creepy story by way of my friend Melba. I've never mentioned her name because she just gave me her name. This is the medium / clairvoyant woman that's 93 years old that I've spoken to several times here recently, introduced to her by way of one of my sisters. She finally gave me her name. Her name's Melba, and I thought that was a bit endearing because I knew a Melba. She passed away just a few years ago, sweet lady. She was in her 90s too when she passed. She was grandmother of one of my childhood best friends, Jeff, who's married to a beautiful woman named Charlotte, and they have a beautiful son named Alex, and they live over in Sweden. So shout out, guys, if you're watching. They were in the States here this summer to visit some friends and family, and they were flying back to Europe from DC, and so they stopped by here and spent an afternoon with us, and their son Alex caught a huge catfish about like this in our pond down there. Had a great time. Jeff's grandmother was named Melba, and she was a sweet woman. I remember going to her house, and her husband's name was Gene, and just always respectful and kind. So anyway, that's what the story is going to be about. But I want to talk about a few things first before that. As of this recording, today, right now, is Veterans Day. I want to say Happy Veterans Day to every single veteran out there watching, and I want to thank you for your service. And I want to thank your families. I'll tell you, one of the greatest accomplishments for a family, a lot of families go through a lot of things. When a soldier deploys to war and he or she is gone for a year, that's a long time for those they leave behind. And unfortunately and very sadly, a lot of folks who go on deployment come home to find that they no longer have a family. A lot of times they no longer have a house. They no longer have a truck. The bank account's been cleaned out. It's terrible. But then you see those families who are still there when their soldier gets home. And I have so much respect for the strength and the perseverance that those who are left behind, who have to wait and wonder every night if mom's coming home, if dad's coming home. Thank you to those of you who stick it through and stay the course. You're as much of a hero. You're as much of a hero as that soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine that went to hell. You had your own hell. You weren't getting shot at and IED'd and bombed and mortared, but it was hell. Thank you. Thank you. You don't get thanked enough. Thank you. Okay. So, before I get on to the story, I also want to give a shout out to this guy named Eddie Mcguire, who's in Michigan. He's a hunter. He's 49 years old, and I guess he was out here recently trying to find where the big bucks were, because the bucks are in rut now. I know it because I have this apple orchard we planted over here a few years ago, and one of the tree guards came off of one of the trees. And I'm like, whatever. It's like I've got hundreds of trees in my front yard we planted, and there's like one that the guard came off of, and daggone it, if one of the bucks around here didn't go and just rub his horns and just tear that tree up, it'll live. He didn't kill it. But anyway, Eddie was out in Michigan there, looking to find where the bucks were rubbing because he's getting ready to go deer hunting, and he fell and he got hurt. Eddie's 49 years old, and he mentioned that he thought his days of, just climbing up tree stands and barreling around through the woods hunting deer were over because of his age. And then he saw my video I made Saturday, I guess, where I showed the 5K run I ran, talked about losing 25 pounds this year, and talked about the older folks who beat my backside. 63-year-old man beat me. 59-year-old man won the thing outright. And I didn't mention this. The women's winner of that race, 33, smoked me. Couldn't even keep up with her. And I was a state champion in a mile and ran track in college. I'm not bad at this running thing. I'm actually all right at it. And Eddie mentioned that he was inspired by the phrase that I said, you don't stop playing because you get old because you stop playing. And so now he feels that he can get back out there in the woods and climb up in the tree stands. And Eddie, just be careful. And I'm going to quote Ernest Hemingway here again, one of my favorite authors. He said, the truth about old men is not that they become wise, they become careful. So Eddie, I'm glad I motivated you, but be careful. All right. Here's something that motivated me this morning. I read a news article. I know I don't like the political crap. I ignore that. But there was a story this morning about a woman in Louisiana named Julia Hawkins. Okay? She's 105 years old. She was the American female record holder for the 100 meters. Yeah, when she was 104. There was this age group, 100 to 104. She raced in that division. Well, now that she's 105, because when you race, they usually do it by in 5-year increments or 4-year increments. There was no 105-year-old plus age group because I guess there's not a whole lot of 105-year-old track stars out there. Well, by golly, Julia Hawkins, a retired teacher from Louisiana, decided she was not just going to break a record, she was going to create an entire new age group. So I guess over the weekend or here recently, she set a new record in a category that she created, didn't even exist. She ran 100 meters in 1 minute and 2 seconds, 1:02. She was kind of upset with her performance because she wanted to go in under a minute. She wanted to break a minute. And guys, if you do the math, this turns out to be a 16-minute mile. How many of you out there can walk a mile, let alone run a mile, without stopping? And if you can do those things, great. How many of you can do it in 16 minutes? Hey, when I started training again to drop all this weight this past spring, I was running 12-minute miles. This 105-year-old woman ran 100 meters at a pace would be a 16-minute mile. This is really an achievement. But she was upset that she didn't go under a minute. And somebody said to her, they said, well, you're 105, you're 105, you ran a 102, you ran faster than your age. Doesn't that make you feel better? You know what she said? She said, no. And she mentioned that there's a track meet in, I think, March or May, 6 months out into the future. And she says she's going to go under a minute at that meet. She's going to train over the next 6 months. 105 years old. Most people are wondering if she's going to wake up the next day. And she's training for an event 6 months out because she wants to go under a minute. This guy, and I hope everybody who watches this guy is going to be in her corner. And we're going to watch that race when it happens. And she's going to go under a minute. Phenomenal. Now, with that said, I want to throw this in there as well. Because it's all about inspiration. It's all about inspiration. It's about finding it where you can get it. It's about inspiring others. And it doesn't have to be somebody who is very aged doing something exceptional. I'm not gonna mention this guy's name, but I'm gonna tell you this story quickly. My son is a martial artist. We don't really talk a lot about. You guys think it's like a lot of people are like, oh, I would never do YouTube because you got to tell everybody everything about your life. No, you don't. We tell you a very small amount, and we're very honest and open about that amount. But the majority of our life we really keep private. for safety and because, we just, that's how we want to roll. So though our son's been into this for quite a while, we've never mentioned it, but he's a martial artist. He takes karate. There's a guy, one of his instructors. He is a 15-year-old black kid who is a sophomore in high school, who is a second-degree black belt, who is one of the main instructors at my son's dojo. Let me tell you, he's 15, okay, 10th grade. He finishes school, then he goes to the karate school and instructs karate from like 4 p.m. to about 9 p.m. every day, 5 days a week. I think they take Sundays and Mondays off. So while other 15-year-old kids are going home and playing video games or, I want to say hanging out at the mall, but I don't know if people do that anymore. Malls are dinosaurs. I mean, there's one in town, but it's closing down. I wish it would have, whatever. This young man is going out there and pursuing his passion, doing what he loves, and inspiring others and teaching others. And his charisma and his energy level is so high. Like, we went to a class recently at about, 6 to 7 p.m. because there's several different classes you can do, but that's just what fit our schedule that day. This young man, after going to school all day, already teaching 2 separate 1 hour long courses, is teaching his 3rd out of 4th. There's like 2 or 3 instructors for every class. Man, it's phenomenal, the energy this guy has. And it just inspires me. It's very inspiring. But we must stay hydrated. I'm having coffee because it's a bit chilly, as you can tell by my toboggan. You know what else is inspiring? This coffee mug is made out of clay by hand by a local artist that has a shop up the road from us. There's a group of artists who, they pull their work together. You can go in there during the day, and usually there's not even anybody in that store. And they have a jar there with money, and they have pen, and they have these forms you fill out. You tell them what you bought, like there's a number on it or something, and the artist's name, so that person gets the credit for the sale, and they get the money from the sale. It's like an honor system. And they've been doing this for years. That's inspiring. Listen, instead of going out there and telling everybody what you think is so wrong with the world and think, everything negative, why don't you spread the good news? Why don't you inspire others by telling them stories about things that have inspired you? Like 105-year-old track stars and 15-year-old second-degree black belts who commit to 5 hours a day after a full day of school to teach others their craft. And people who trust others enough to have a, Boy Scout system there with the money jar. It's amazing. There's so much good in this world. There's so much beauty in this world if you just focus on that rather than the negative and the ugly. All right. Story time. I was talking to Melba. She contacted me because of a video I made recently where I was talking about gut instinct. And she said, listen to your gut. And she shared with me a story. She doesn't live in New England anymore, but she spent most of her life there. And she shared a story with me where she was called in by someone to try to find out where one of their house servants went. It was a rich woman, a very wealthy older woman who had a married couple that pretty much took care of her. The man was a butler, the woman was the maid, she did the cooking, the man kept the grounds, all these things. Well, this would have been back in the 1940s. This was a long time ago. She got a call because this woman had heard about Melba's gifts, and she said, I need your help. So Melba went to meet with her, and she said, look, I'm going to introduce you to my manservant. That's what she called him. Whatever. I would have called him by his name, but that's just me. Seeing people as people, not as the positions they, fill in their job. But she said, I'm going to introduce you to my manservant as my friend. even though you're considerably younger than me. I'm going to say we're friends. I don't want him to know who you are and what you do. And Melba was like, okay, so what's going on? What's the story here? And she said, well, his wife took off. She's gone. She left a few days ago. He went down and filed a missing persons report with the police. The suspicion was that she left for another man. I guess the woman was considerably younger than her husband and considerably more attractive than her husband. And I can relate to this because you guys have seen my wife. You know there's a considerable difference in our ages and our levels of, physical attraction or appearance. It's no secret that my wife is way younger than me, and it's obvious that I'm way better looking than her, but we made it work. Well, I guess this couple didn't or couldn't. So the wife ran off for another guy. However, the wealthy old woman felt a bit like her gut. This is a story about listening to your gut. Something was off, but she didn't know quite what it was, so she called Melba to come up and help. So Melba goes up. She spends some time with this woman. She meets the manservant. I hate to say that term. Let's call him Ralph. Ralph. That's just degrading. Manservant? Really? All right, so she meets Ralph. Seemed like a likable enough guy. And the wealthy old woman says, unfortunately, Ralph's wife just kind of took off. We don't really know where she went or where she is. It's kind of bad timing to have you as a friend here, but I didn't want to tell you not to come because of this situation, but I wanted you to know if Ralph's acting a bit odd, it's because his wife just took off and left, and we hope she's okay. And so Ralph pretty much said he was convinced that his wife left him for some other guy that lived down in town that she was always spending time with, always flirting with, and he always thought she was doing it to make him jealous, but then he realized after she left it was probably sincere. She probably liked this guy. Then, of course, Melba was like, oh, this is terrible. But she noticed that anytime he talked about his wife, he would break out in a sweat. She could notice sweat beads coming on his forehead. She would notice him swallowing that lump in his throat, licking his lips. His mouth was dry. So after Ralph left, after, Melba had just met the guy, she told the old woman that had hired her, said, you don't need a medium for this. It's obvious he had something to do with the disappearance. He's sweating. He's getting nervous. He's licking his lips. He's swallowing, when he talks about her. And she says, well, I've known him and I've known his wife for many years. I don't think he could hurt a fly, let alone his wife. I think she left for this other man. Can you tap into can you go through the veil to the other side? And she's like, that's not even necessary. This guy killed his wife. I can just tell by his mannerisms, his tells, as they say it. So she stayed with her for a few days. She never got any sort of vibes whatsoever. She never felt as if anybody or anything was trying to communicate with her through the other side. Until the final morning when she woke up, the day she was set to leave. She woke up in the guest bedroom and it was filled with fog. And she thought it was so odd, so strange. It wasn't smoke. She couldn't smell fire. It was just fog. So she opened the sash, looked out the window. Again, this was in New England. It was in the fall, this time of year. A fog had set in so heavy she couldn't even see down into the lawn. But she heard screaming. She heard Ralph yelling, no, I won't go with you. No, I'm not going to go with you. And he screamed, get your hands off of me. They're hot. Oh my God, they're so hot. That's all she heard. So she ran out of her bedroom and she slammed into the wall in the hallway because the entire hallway was filled with fog. She's feeling around and she's yelling for this, this old rich woman that hired her to come up, yelling for her. So this woman comes bursting out of her room. She goes, what is it? She goes, I don't know. Ralph's downstairs and he's yelling, get your hands off of me. Oh my God, they're so hot. we've got to go down there. So these two women, one was she would have been in her 30s at the time. The other was in her 70s. They're feeling their way down the hall, making sure they don't fall. And they hear a car engine start up, and they hear it speed out of there like the hounds from hell are chasing it. So they get out into the yard. The old woman knows her property, so she's like, follow me. She grabs Melba's hands. She's leading her through the yard. As soon as they get off of the property or out to the drive where the road is, it's a perfectly clear day. It's just like this, minus, the smoke from my beautiful fire pit. Didn't I do a good job on that? I don't want to brag, so I'll humble brag. Oh, I did an okay job, didn't I? Hey, it's okay. There, so I didn't brag. I just humble bragged, all right? So anyway, they get in their car, the old woman's car, and they just take off driving in the direction they heard the car going. They find Ralph's car parked just in front of a bridge that crossed the river that had a pretty deep hole in it, and Ralph's not there. So they get back in their car, go into town, get the police, they come out. They drag the river. Took them all day. But when they dragged the river, they found two bodies. They found Ralph's body, and Ralph had been dead for a few hours, according to the examiner. And they also found the body of Ralph's wife. She had been dead for about a week. They could tell this through, examining the body. The strange thing was, she had a bullet hole through the back of her head. The bullet lodged into her brain, so it was a small caliber pistol. It didn't have, enough penetration to come out the front. She had a weight tied around her neck, so they determined she had been killed before she was thrown into the water. The weight was to hold the body down. But the strangest thing of all is that her hands were locked around Ralph's neck. Hope you enjoyed the story today. Hope you got some inspiration with the prefaces to the story. And I hope that you wake up tomorrow feeling inspired and go out and do something great. See you for more next time.